The series begins a year ago when Gio woke up from a coma in a confusing situation. He was surrounded by ruins and full of questions. He looked at the remains of a burning building with bodies everywhere, feeling unsure. Among the chaos, a figure dressed in black, barely alive, moved towards him. He had been troubled for years by the question, is he human or monster? Years earlier, in the middle of the night, a woman holding baby Gio ran into an abandoned building, chased by dark figures. With no escape, she made a desperate choice, whispering to him that he is not a monster. Then, she dropped him into a dark place, and blue light surrounded him. As an adult, Gio often woke up in strange places, not knowing if he was the hunter or the hunted. When two cars approached, he quickly left. Meanwhile, his son, the only survivor in black, was taken to a hospital where Dr. Jung Kwon gave him 2 injections, causing him to scream in pain. While washing his hands, Gio remembered hospital screams and electric shocks. Seeing his burned ID, he decided to leave. A year later, a skeleton was found at a construction site. The police came to a busy scene with many onlookers. Officer Gurum noticed dental work on the skeleton and criticized the police, which annoyed homicide leader Jinho. Gurum went to the National Forensic Institute to ask Director Jong Hwan about the body, thinking it might be Nam Wook. Jong Hwan saw the similarities but needed time to confirm. While waiting for an elevator, Gurum saw Jin Hwan and his assistant Yu Cheol, avoiding a confrontation, which left Jin Hwan frustrated and Yu Cheol in the middle. At home, Gurum looked at files about her parents' unsolved murder, troubled by the connection to Nam Wook and others who were missing or dead. The next day, she was reassigned to Jin Hwan's team, now working under him. Over dinner, Jin Hwan tried to fix their earlier disagreement and persuaded Gurum to drink 2 glasses of wine. News of the male corpse quickly reached the secret mastermind. The National Intelligence Agency's director met with Jung A and calmly briefed her. She assured him that these events wouldn't attract police attention. They were focused on an upcoming clinical trial. Failure would mean the end and silence for everyone involved. After dinner, Gurum followed her leads to Anning Resources' Human Science Research Department. When she got out of her car, she saw Gio, who recognized her and quickly got into his car. He had been working there under a fake name for a year, disposing of institute waste. Gurum asked about Gi Young-soon, connected to funds traced back to this place. The employee she questioned pretended not to know anything. With the company nearing bankruptcy, job security was uncertain and records were scarce. Frustrated, Gurum left without any answers. Moments later, the employee entered the underground lab, where animal experiments, especially cell differentiation, were frustrating Director Jung Kwon. The head mentioned similar research in Sweden, and investors were losing patience. Time was running out. Jung Kwon thought about another Z0, looking at the torn tag. The next morning, Jin Hwan led a team to raid a virtual golf club. Meanwhile, Gurum was chasing fugitives when a speeding car hit her. Gio, passing by, stopped quickly and performed CPR. When that didn't work, he used his electric powers, giving multiple shocks. Gurum briefly regained consciousness, and Gio left without being noticed. That evening, curious about her mysterious savior, Gurum received a video from Jin Hwan showing the incident. The man, connected to Anning Resources, handed over cash, suggesting a meeting and gift buying. At the same time, the video reached the department head and Jung Kwon, who identified him as the escaped Z0 sample. Plans to capture him began, led by his son, who was haunted by his past encounter with Gio. Gio's electric powers made him seem more like a monster than a man. The special team quickly arrived at the incinerator, where Gio and the manager were talking casually, unaware of the danger. Hearing footsteps, the manager, thinking they were supervisors, hid their drinks. Gio sensed hostility, but it was too late. Huang Sik knocked out the manager, and Gio, still struggling with memory gaps, faced a fierce attack. Huang Sik moved to burn the manager, but Gio, finally using his powers, defeated them and ran into the nearby woods. His son and his team chased after him relentlessly. Gurum arrived at the incinerator with drinks, wanting to thank Gio. She saw a badly burned body and sensed trouble, so she called for backup. With no information from the employee on duty, Jin Huan split the team to watch the director's and Gio's homes. Gio hurried to pack but was trapped by Yi-sun and his men. Using parkour skills, he escaped, injuring Huang sick. Gu-room saw his escape and followed, using her detective skills. Gio reached a rooftop with no way out. Yi-sun caught up and attacked him, cutting his leg with a knife. As Yi-sun was about to deliver a fatal blow, Gio's memories returned. He blocked the attack with an electrifying glare, mimicking a move that had disabled Yi-sun's arm years ago. Learning from the past, Yi-sun quickly kicked Gio off the building. Gio fell, screaming, and his superpowers caused an explosion of sparks. Gu-room was knocked out by the shockwave and fell beside Gio. Seeing him unconscious, Yi-sun prepared to kill him with a knife but was stopped by Huang sick. The explosion had drawn too much attention, so Yi-sun ordered them to stay while he returned to the institute. At the institute, Yi-sun briefed the director, who was very unhappy and scolded Yi-sun for failing. Jung Quan was angry and stressed the urgency of retrieving Gio from the hospital. Gio's special body posed risks despite his strong abilities. He could still die in a critical state. However, as long as his cells stayed alive, there was hope. The director insisted on bringing Gio back, even if it meant getting his body fresh. For added security, Yuna was sent to help Yi-sun. When Yi-sun met her, he noticed her enhanced physical abilities, red hair, and healed leg, thanks to Jung Quan's advancements. Without delay, Yi-sun directed Yuna to start their mission. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Gu-room lay in a coma, recalling an incident from years ago. As a child, she remembered her father bringing home a boy one night. Curious, she saw the boy in the living room and wondered if he would become her younger brother. Her mother avoided the topic and sent her to bed. Later that night, Gu-room woke up to noises and found the boy raiding the refrigerator. She asked who he was, but he stared back with electrified eyes. Suddenly, electrical appliances sparked throughout the house, scaring her. She called for her father, only to be knocked back by a powerful shockwave. Jin Huan received news of Gu-room's condition and rushed to the hospital. Confirming her safety, he and Yu Chiol hurried to the ICU, where Gio lay critically injured, with his organs failing. Yu Chiol described the strange scene. Surveillance and dash cams showed nothing. Hard drives were damaged. Oddly, Gio's blood type wasn't on record, and his sample was sent to the National Scientific Investigation Institute for analysis. Anxious, Jin Huan insisted on an immediate investigation into any strange occurrences. Concerned, Gu-room hurried to the hospital, eager for updates on Gio's condition. Looking through thick glass, she hesitated but decided not to mention Gio's electric discharge when he fell, only noting the explosion afterward. Remembering another man on the rooftop, Jin Huan planned a thorough strategy. He suspected the attacker held a grudge against the director and was discovered by Gio during the incident. He ordered his team to split up, one group guarding the hospital and the other investigating the director's social connections. He advised Gu-room to rest and warned her against risking herself in the field. Considering Jin Huan's advice, Gu-room observed his careful manner and distinctive hairstyle, finding his caution reasonable. She complied and got into her car. That evening, she researched Gio at the police station and found records of his troubled past, interfering with duties and carrying weapons, indicating a difficult youth. Orphaned, his birth and declaration dates were 10 years apart, declared at a church connected to an unsolved case. Grabbing her gun, Gu-room rushed to the hospital, convinced Gio was the boy from her father's past. On the way, Gio's condition suddenly worsened. Doctors used electric shocks to revive him, causing a hospital-wide blackout due to his superpowers. Shortly after, Director Wu from the National Scientific Investigation Institute called Jin Huan with unsettling news. Gio's blood was not human. News of the explosion also quickly reached Jung Ye. At the church, she pressured the director for updates on the child. He assured her that efforts to retrieve the child were underway and promised a swift resolution. Jung Ye expressed frustration over the escaped child, delaying a decades-old project on Lucas cells, draining resources. She emphasized the need for tangible results over empty promises, marking the director's final chance to usher in a successful era. Disguised, Yi-sun and 3 accomplices infiltrated the hospital. Huang Sik secretly hacked the surveillance system while the others, pretending to be medical staff, headed for the ICU. Gu-room reached Gio's bedside first, hoping he would remember details about his parents. As she spoke, Yi-sun and his team arrived. claiming they were there for a patient transfer. Sensing deception, Gu Room followed them into an elevator. Yuna abandoned their disguise and attacked Gu Room, knocking her down. Geo woke up, triggering a chaotic fight involving all 5 in the elevator. Geo managed to escape as the elevator reached the 2nd floor, fleeing into a changing room. Isun followed but soon realized Geo might still be in the hospital. Returning, he found Geo gone, leaving only a hospital gown and a bloodied cloth behind. At the National Scientific Investigation Institute, Jin Huan and Zhang Huan debated about Geo's blood type. Jin Huan thought there might be problems with the equipment, but Professor Wu insisted his tools were perfect. He suggested that Geo's blood might be a rare mutant type, not showing human or animal traits. They agreed that Geo needed to be examined urgently. Just as Jin Huan hesitated, news came that Geo had escaped from the hospital. Yu Chiol ordered a lockdown, with Gu Room guarding the rear exit. With police blocking the exits, Geo looked for another way out, which Gu Room noticed. Chased to a pedestrian overpass, Geo struggled with the noise from trains and traffic, accidentally causing a streetlight to explode. Seeing Isun and Gu Room, he kept running. The director was furious about Geo's escape and demanded answers from Jung Quan about Geo's resilience despite a double dose of medication. Jung Quan explained that Geo had passed a critical point. While he might die, his powers would grow stronger as weaker cells died. Brain damage had erased his identity. In a dark subway tunnel, Gu Room found Geo. Exhausted, Geo sought answers. Gu Room, angry, attacked but was soon subdued by Geo. She pressed him about her parents' fate until interrupted by Isun. Overpowered, Gu Room fell. Cornered by Teo and Huang Sik, Geo fled to the nearby tracks. Gu Room chased him but was ambushed by Yuna and knocked unconscious on the rails. As a train approached, Geo saw Gu Room and released a powerful electric surge, incapacitating Teo and fatally injuring Huang Sik. When Jin Huan's team arrived, both parties had fled, leaving a stunned subway driver unable to give details. Jin Huan ordered a lockdown, intensifying checks on all commuters. Geo intercepted Gu Room just before the subway arrived, carrying her deeper into the tunnel. Seeing Gu Room's taser, Jin Huan shifted the search to a potential kidnapping. At the station, officers checked every passerby with Geo's photo. Geo, thinking quickly, secretly electrified Gu Room's phone before throwing it into a trash can, causing an explosion and creating chaos. Grabbing gas masks, Geo took Gu Room away. At the National Scientific Investigation Institute, Zhang Huan and his assistant analyzed Geo's blood sample and were shocked by the findings. Geo's DNA included elements from jellyfish, electric eels, and flies, suggesting illegal gene editing. Zhang Huan suspected Zheng Quan, knowing only he would do such experiments, having been expelled and once detained by the police for similar acts. Zhang Huan, who had reported him, was his college classmate and close friend. The department head met with Isun, unhappy with his recent failures, but hopefully Isun could track Geo through police movements. Success could ensure a comfortable retirement, while failure would hint at incompetence. After the department head left, Isun stared at his darkened right hand, his gaze becoming more intense. Gu Room woke up from her coma and immediately fought with Geo beside her. Despite her injuries, Geo soon overpowered her, pinning her against a cabinet. He remembered saving someone, but couldn't recall who it was. His recent memories were blank. Taking advantage of the moment, Gu Room pushed him away and tried to call the police, only to find her phone missing. They had to communicate through a wall. At the hospital, Yu Chiol asked Jin Huan about the people chasing Geo. Absent-mindedly, Jin Huan responded. Yu Chiol jokingly teased him about getting emotional over a Korean drama. Just then, they got news of a subway station fire alarm and a nearby car theft. With the car model and license plate identified and a warrant issued, Jin Huan confidently took charge of surveillance in the area. Hearing about the stolen car, Isun quickly mobilized his team. Both Geo and Gu Room struggled with their memory loss. Geo felt a familiarity with Gu Room. She insisted that if there was only one like him in the world, they must have met. Gu-room recalled the night a boy visited her home when she was 10, questioning his actions after just one day's stay and her parents' disappearance afterward. Determined to find the truth, even if it meant probing his mind, she noticed Gio's alarmed reaction. Before he could warn her, Yi-sun confronted her, saying this matter was beyond police jurisdiction. Just as Yi-sun was about to open the door, Jin Huan and his team arrived just in time. Gu-room signaled Gio discreetly. After Jin Huan and his team chased Yi-sun, she communicated a meeting time with Gio through a gap in the door. Downstairs, Yi-sun had disappeared by the time she got there. Jin Huan asked her about the incident, and she pretended to remember nothing. Sensing her evasion, Jin Huan didn't push further. Examining the bloodied bandage Yi-sun returned with, the department head figured out that Gio had used it to tend to Gu-room's wounds. Yi-sun expected their paths to cross again. The department head gave Yi-sun Gu-room's file, revealing her father's involvement in creating Gio and his subsequent disappearance with both parents. He instructed Yi-sun to closely monitor Gu-room. At home, Gu-room reviewed subway station surveillance footage when she received an email from Zhang Huan inviting her to a meeting. He asked for her help in finding Gio and Zheng Quan. Describing Zheng Quan as erratic, Zhang Huan recounted his expulsion from academia after advocating human evolution for long-term survival, saying that science's value lay in dreams, not morality. This led to embezzlement of research funds, illegal egg trading, and trafficking protected animals, resulting in months of detention. Gu-room speculated that Gio might be a human creation of Zheng Quan's. Zhang Huan hesitated but mentioned recent gene editing advancements in China and the US, creating HIV-immune children and potentially any type of human, even growing human organs in pigs. Gu-room felt a wave of nausea. Zhang Huan argued that scientific experiments should not cross ethical boundaries, labeling such synthetic humans as not truly human. He warned that if their numbers grew, they could dominate ordinary human. It became urgent to find Zheng Quan. That evening, as Gio attended his appointment, news broke that Huang's sixth death was labeled a suicide due to the department head's influence. Jin Huan was ordered to surrender all case files. Gu-room drove to meet Gio, sharing a simple meal and asking about his memories. Gio's recollections were fragmented, and he was unsure of past killings. Gu-room urged him to remember, stressing that ignorance wasn't an option. He described waking up in a new world each time, feeling like a soulless zombie. Gu-room shared her torment over her missing parents and suggested visiting his former orphanage to uncover the truth. The following day at the restaurant, Yunna lamented Huang's sixth death as a futile sacrifice, sarcastically commenting on their service to the country ending without honor. Despite this, they couldn't stop their mission. Without regular injections, her legs and Yi-sun's right arm would decay instantly. Annoyed, Yi-sun instructed her to focus on her duties and keep a close watch on Gu-room. Early the next morning, Gu-room applied to leave work early, showing the 15 stitches on the back of her head. Unable to dissuade her, Jin Huan informed her of Huang's sixth alleged suicide and the case transfer from the previous night. He earnestly advised her to rest properly, as insubordination in the homicide unit could lead to dismissal. He gave her a new phone and cautioned her to be vigilant. Following their plan, Gu-room took Gio to the Edian church, which had significant ties to the orphanage. She aimed to uncover information about Gio and Sister Wani, who had disappeared over 20 years ago. After attending Mass, the head nun couldn't remember these two individuals, despite police visits after a previous church fire. Suddenly, she recalled Gio's name, mentioning his solitary visit years ago. Several people had tried to adopt him, but none kept him for more than a day, quickly returning him. The nun blamed Gio for a church fire during which she lost her sight, believing his memory loss marked him as a devil incarnate. Gio, unable to take the accusations, objected, upsetting the elderly nun. Recognizing Gio's voice, she hurried into the prayer room, praying for the archangel to cast the demon into hell. Confused, Gio questioned his true nature. The old nun accused him of being a demon and blamed him for a fire that killed many innocent people. Gu-room quickly pulled him away. Looking out a nearby window, Gio remembered starting the fire but couldn't recall the details. He cried out that it wasn't his fault, but no one listened. Overwhelmed with emotion, he released a powerful electric charge in anger. Demanding the nun stop her prayers, he blamed her ignorance for turning him into a monster. She kept calling him a devil incarnate. Unable to bear it any longer, He let out a roar and a burst of electricity, throwing Gu Room and the old nun backward as flames engulfed the prayer room. The smoke attracted Isun and two others, who rushed in despite the choking fumes. Meanwhile, Gu Room regained consciousness. Realizing there was no reason to stay, she quickly left with Gio. In the corridor, Gio looked at a statue, seeing his younger self and remembering the fire he had started there. Gu Room asked about his parents, but he hadn't remembered yet, so she decided to get him into the car first. Isun and his group passed by unnoticed. Gu Room's phone, destroyed in the fire, lay on the road. She asked Gio when he first discovered his ability to emit electricity. Gio described feeling a heat throughout his body, followed by blue vision whenever he suffered amnesia and wished for death. Then the discharge occurred. Gu Room believed his will to survive activated this power. They spotted a tower on the subway station rooftop and planned the next step to uncover what happened to him before the orphanage. However, Gio hesitated. Those memories were too painful. Upon learning of another failed mission, the director erupted in anger, slapping Isun repeatedly. Isun assured him he was handling things proactively and vowed not to fail again. The director calmed down, looking at Isun and Jung Kwan with a mix of frustration and trust. After he left, Jung Kwan comforted Isun, recalling how Isun's right arm had recovered last year due to his treatment, making their current situation unavoidable. He acknowledged that the uncertainty wasn't ideal for someone with Isun's military background, but hoped Isun could retrieve Gio unharmed. In a phone booth, Gu Room called Jin Huan. After leaving the church, she noted Isun's car license plate number. Jin Huan found out the car was scrapped and not registered. Gu Room then called Zhang Huan. While driving, she told Gio about the unregistered car and suspected someone was tracking them. She became more suspicious of Gio, thinking he wasn't just a witness. They quickly went to meet Professor Zhang Huan. Gio resisted the medical tests, but Gu Room convinced him by saying she would kill him if it was proven he had killed her parents years ago. Zhang Huan explained they would do blood and tissue tests and show Gio a photo of Jung Kwan, but Gio didn't recognize him. During the tests, Gio remembered painful torture from his childhood. Overwhelmed, he pushed Zhang Huan and Gu Room away and ran off. He soon collapsed from exhaustion. Gu Room found him, returned his coat, and urged him to finish the tests. Gio refused, saying he no longer wanted to know about his past. He said Gu Room made him feel safe, and he was sure he hadn't hurt her parents. Angry, he broke a bus stop sign before leaving. Gu Room could only tend to her wound as he left. Zhang Huan joked she might need a makeover. Gu Room then talked about Gio visiting her home when they were kids. Zhang Huan thought her father might have been involved in life sciences, but didn't understand why Gio visited her home or why her parents disappeared with him. Gu Room was unsure if her parents were still alive, but wanted to see them again. She became sadder as she spoke. Zhang Huan comforted her, hoping she could live her own life and not be burdened by her past. Feeling inspired by her usual motivational quotes, Gu Room felt determined. She hoped the professor would tell her the results soon, so she could find out if Jung Kwan was involved. While waiting for Gio to return, Yuna and Isun talked about their time in the military. Yuna told a sad story about an accident where she confused a hand grenade with a flash grenade, causing the deaths of 9 teammates. In another accident, live ammunition was mistaken for blanks, resulting in the deaths of 5 comrades and her right lower leg being amputated. She got a life sentence and tried to commit suicide twice. She was confused because live ammunition was never used in their training. Later, someone offered her a job and a prosthetic leg in exchange for her cooperation. Isun was shocked by her story, seeing similarities with his own. He had been recruited by the director, who gave him everything he has now. Isun started to think it was all part of a bigger plan. Not wanting to think more about it, he quickly left the car. Yuna also got out and suggested they escape together, confident they could avoid being caught. Isun refused and warned her never to mention it again. The next morning, Gio found a business card from a research institute in the car, similar to one he had a year ago. He called the number and talked to Wani, who remembered Gio and thought he had forgotten his wallet. Meanwhile, Gu Room was looking into Jung Kwan when Jin Huan came in and gave her a new phone, suspecting she was hiding something. He joked about someone microwaving a new phone, which became a funny story at work. Confused, Gu Room received a call and quickly left, ignoring her angry boss. Gio visited Wonyi's home and was welcomed warmly. Wonyi had heard about Gio's heroic act and talked about their shared past. They were childhood friends from the orphanage who had committed crimes together. Gio felt uneasy about his past. Wonhee recalled their expulsion from the orphanage and being bullied, leading them to live on the streets after a fire at the church. Wonhee suggested Gio stay and join him in loan sharking for quick money. While Gio slept, Wonhee secretly called Yi-sun, who had forced him to give information before. Upon hearing that, Yi-sun immediately went to Wonhee's house after the call. At the National Institute of Scientific Investigation, Zhang Huan showed Gio's medical report, revealing his DNA had traits from electric eels, jellyfish, sturgeons, bats, and fruit flies, giving him abilities like generating electricity and extraordinary reflexes. Zhang Huan said understanding Luca, the last universal common ancestor, could bring limitless possibilities. Gio was created through an illegal biotechnological process that only Zheng Quan could have done. Zhang Huan hoped Gurum would quickly find Zheng Quan and arrest him, as Gio was no longer considered fully human. Gio sensed danger coming. Before he could react, Yi-sun and two others attacked him. Panicking, Gio released a burst of electricity, starting a fight that moved downstairs. When Yi-sun was almost defeated, Yuna injected Gio, making him fall unconscious. The noise of the fight caught the attention of people in the building. Yi-sun told Yuna to destroy all witnesses' phones while he went to file a report. When Zheng Quan saw the report on Gio uploaded to the academy, he got very angry. It was the result of 30 years of his work without recognition. He demanded the director delete the report immediately. However, the director thought Zheng Quan and Zhang Huan were working together and wondered how such detailed information came from just a hospital blood test. Meanwhile, Zheng Quan got a video call confirming Gio's capture and told Yi-sun to bring Gio back quickly. In the car, Gio remembered the night Wang Yang betrayed him and his family. Struggling with the painful memories, he woke up and released a powerful surge of electricity. Yi-sun tried 3 different injections to stop him, but this only made Gio react more strongly. The intense electricity caused the car to flip and explode. Gio walked away without looking back at the explosion. After escaping from Yi-sun, Gio found a public phone and called Gurum. Using the phone's location, Gurum drove to find him. On the way, she remembered Zhang Huan's advice. If they couldn't capture Gio, they might have to kill him to prevent a threat to humanity. When they met, Gio told her about his deep loneliness, a burden he didn't want to carry alone anymore. Moved by Gio's vulnerability, Gurum couldn't shoot him and took him home instead. Before going to work briefly, Gurum warned Gio not to enter her room or face serious consequences. Meanwhile, news of a big website attack the previous night appeared on electronic billboards and car radios, reporting a coordinated hacking incident. 13 organizations, including the National Institute of Scientific Investigation, lost all their data, including backups. Frustrated, Zhang Huan heard from his assistant that other institutes faced the same problem. In a meeting with Zheng A, the department head smiled, confident that Gio's existence would stay hidden. They blamed the hack on North Korea, securing their future and beginning a new era. Celebrating with champagne, Zheng A expressed her desire for more people like Gio, imagining a future where 101 million such beings could control global wealth and prestige. Gio, the original prototype, was meant to disappear after giving all his Luca cells, having already lived longer than intended. After these events, the department head was excited about a promotion to lead the National Intelligence Agency. However, their plans were interrupted by a call reporting chaos at the institute. When they arrived, the angry department head slapped the unconscious Yi-sun and scolded Yuna, who explained what happened. Despite objections, the department head ordered the researchers to revive Yi-sun at any cost. When Yi-sun woke up, he asked Zheng Quan for a strength-enhancing injection, even though it was risky. Yuna, also determined, wanted the injection, prioritizing its benefits over the risk of transformation. Zheng Quan, impressed by their resolve, gave the injection to Yi-sun and warned Yuna about its side effects, which she accepted. But Yi-sun stopped Zheng Quan from injecting Yuna due to the intense pain. After her shift, Gurum bought clothes for Gio. While he changed, she called Zhang Huan to update him on the situation without revealing Gio was at her home. Zhang Huan still urged her to turn Gio over to the police. During the call, Zhang Huan almost missed seeing Yuna, who was disguised as a passerby. After checking the situation and returning to his car, Yi-sun, hidden inside, subdued him. Meanwhile, Gio woke up to thunder outside. He found case files behind a curtain and a childhood family photo of Gu Room. Remembering his visits to Gu Room's home, he showed her the photo, leading to a deep conversation. As Zhang Huan regained consciousness, Li Sun pressured him for information about Gio. After giving him 2 doses of ethanol, a confused Zhang Huan revealed the details. Teo retrieved the documents, and Li Sun drove off, plunging both Zhang Huan and the car into a raging river. Gu Room hung the photo on the wall and thought about her past. She had become a police officer after her parents disappeared when she was 10 years old. Strangely, everyone connected to her father had either died or vanished. Despite 10 years on the force, she hadn't found her parents. Gio seemed to be her only lead to the truth, with Zheng Quan holding the key to restoring Gio's memories. She secretly hoped Gio was responsible for her parents' deaths, thinking it would bring closure without reopening old wounds. In the past, she could judge a person's character quickly, but Gio remained a mystery to her. The next morning, unable to reach Zhang Huan by phone, Gu Room was about to text him when Jian Huan entered with a serious expression. Though hesitant to deliver the news, he took her to the National Institute of Scientific Investigation. Upon learning of Zhang Huan's death, Gu Room rushed to the river where it happened, devastated. She broke down in tears, mourning her loss. Back at home, Gu Room drank alcohol to drown her sorrows, speaking in despair as she saw Zhang Huan as a father figure. While Gu Room was grieving in her home, Teo secretly sabotaged Gu Room's car. Gu Room sought an investigation warrant from Jian Huan. She argued that Zhang Huan, who never drank, could not have been driving drunk. Jian Huan told her that the prosecutor's office had closed the case due to lack of evidence, making a search warrant impossible. This led to a heated argument, damaging their relationship. Gio suggested that Gu Room quietly investigate around Zhang Huan's connections. At the institute, she asked an assistant about the professor's final days. The assistant mentioned the data erasing hack, which had greatly upset the professor despite his abstinence from alcohol. After organizing the professor's office, Gu Room left, unaware that Li Sun's group was secretly following her. Using computer technology, Teo stopped her car, allowing Li Sun to capture her. Gu Room's kidnapping, along with her abandoned car and a knife left by Li Sun, soon made the news. While cooking, Gio saw the news and quickly understood what had happened. He hurried to Wan Yi's house and asked him to contact Li Sun. Li Sun warned Gio that unless he stopped running, everyone connected to him would suffer. Gio declared he would no longer run and waited for Gu Room's return. After the call, Li Sun admitted to Gu Room that he had killed Zhang Huan and predicted she and Gio would soon join him. Despite Wan Yi's objections, Gio borrowed his car and phone. Thanking Wan Yi as his only friend, Gio left. In an underground mall parking lot, after confirming Gu Room's safety, Gio arranged a meeting with Li Sun. Li Sun told Teo to kill Gu Room if things went wrong. He and Yuna entered the mall to find Gio. Taking a chance, Gio cut the garage's power cable and fought with Teo, eventually knocking him out with an electric shock. Finding a safe place, Gio told Gu Room he would create a distraction and find her if he survived. He stressed that only her survival could reveal the truth. Despite Gu Room's protests, Gio stunned her and drove off before Li Sun could catch them. Meanwhile, Yuna noticed Teo's absence and tracked him through his phone signal. Gio broke his phone and demanded answers about their true identities. Teo, with a military background, refused to talk, warning that killing him would only prolong their pursuit. After Gio inflicted painful shocks and blows, Li Sun's men rescued Teo, not knowing Gio was following them. He trailed them to the institute but was spotted by Li Sun. After a brutal fight where Gio was injured with a metal ruler, Li Sun hinted that killing him would reveal everything.
대단한 놈인 줄 알았어!
Despite Li Sun's superior combat skills, Gio was quickly overpowered and knocked unconscious. Li Sun kicked him a few more times before Institute staff carried Gio inside. Behind thick glass doors, the director overruled Zheng Quan's plan to send in medical aid, choosing instead to watch Gio's healing abilities after performance tests. They immediately planned to start a secret cloning project using Gio's cells, showing how easy cloning had become for them. Despite these events, Lee's son showed no relief, telling Na that the conflict had just begun. Upon returning to the police station, Gu Room was quickly taken to the interrogation room by Jin Huan. He insisted that no one else enter, suspecting they had fallen into a trap. He directly asked her about Gio's whereabouts and mentioned the church fire, but didn't push for immediate answers. Gu Room, not knowing where Gio was, chose to be handcuffed rather than reveal information. Despite Jin Huan's efforts, she remained firm. With no other options, he gave her a bowl of thick soup, usually served to prisoners, before joining Gio in searching her home. When Gio woke up, he found Jung Quan standing before him, offering paternal comfort and saying he was home. An assistant watching from outside understood Jung Kwan's intentions, noting the director's use of paternal affection to make Gio willingly become an experimental subject. Gio struggled to accept this sudden father figure. Jung Kwan continued in a fatherly tone, saying no matter what happens, he is still his father. Gio, moved by his words, tearfully accepted the man's identity. At Gu Room's home, Jin Huan found no sign of Gio but did find one of his hairs and some hidden case files. Over a meal, Jung Quan explained Gio's amnesia and falsely accused Wang Yang of planning to sell Gio for money. Watching the monitors, the assistant reminded the director of the time limit. Gio's healing abilities now surpassed those of a normal human by more than 10 times. Jung Quan glanced at his pocket watch and ended the conversation abruptly. He told Gio that finding out what happened to Wang Yang was his responsibility. Then, he asked Gio if humanity's current state justifiable, and should they be the last of their kind. Before Gio could answer, he would have to endure great pain. Jung Quan put on a gas mask, and by the time Gio sensed danger, he was overcome by strong anesthetic gas. Exhausted, Jung Quan told his assistant to take Gio to the laboratory. Back in the interrogation room, Jin Huan showed Gu Room his phone with photos he had taken at her home. He had figured out that Gu Room had been secretly investigating her parents' disappearance for years. Seeing that the interrogation was going nowhere, Jin Huan suggested they talk over drinks instead. During their conversation, Jin Huan shared a story about a case he worked on 20 years ago involving a missing husband, where the wife was suspected. The case was closed due to the statute of limitations, but he found peace in doing his duty. He wished Gu Room could accept that her parents' disappearance also fell under the statute of limitations, meaning even if the culprit was found, the law couldn't do anything. Gu Room found it absurd that a time limit should control her grief. Jin Huan explained it was the law and urged Gu Room to stop her investigation to avoid trouble. He had been haunted by the old case for years and didn't want Gu Room to suffer the same way. After sharing another drink and some tears, Gu Room firmly declared she wouldn't stop, even if it meant going to jail. This was her path alone to walk. Touched, Jin Huan promised to ignore her actions and delete the photos, but warned that if higher authorities found out, he couldn't protect her. Gu Room added a new sticky note to her wall about Zhang Huan's death and a blue flash from 10 years ago. She worried about Gio's whereabouts, not knowing he was currently tied to a chair and unable to move. Meanwhile, in the office, Jung A noted their rare gathering. The director flattered her, hinting at positive developments. Jung Quan observed that Gio's condition was critical. They needed to remove weaker cells from his body, leaving only strong cells for cloning. Jung A looked forward to the future, planning to prepare enough surrogate mothers for the project. After they left, Jung Quan went to the lab, telling his team to increase the electric shocks on Gio until he could bear no more. If Gio's heart stopped, they needed to do CPR right away to revive him. If cellular evolution was confirmed, years of antibody tests would follow. Jung Quan stressed the need for thorough preparation. Outside the research institute, Jung A told the director about their plan to eliminate everyone once their scheme succeeded, including Jung Quan and Gio, the divine child. Revealing Gio's artificial creation would be disastrous. She assured the director of his place beside her for a new era. As she left, the director sneered, calling her a ruthless woman. The experiment began quickly. Subjected to 7,000 watts of electric current, smoke came from Gio's body. In terrible pain, memories of his childhood flooded Gio's mind, showing Jung Quan as both his father and a monstrous figure like himself. Justifying his actions with Pavlov's experiment, Jung Quan signaled his assistant to increase the current. Gio convulsed violently before falling unconscious. In the morning, Jin Huan called Yu Chiol to his office, and they silently agreed to keep their secrets. Uchiol brought Gurum a drink and talked about the group that had kidnapped her. He noted their professionalism and use of a clone car, the same group from the subway station. Gurum felt they were very organized. Gio hesitated to join quickly. Gurum then shared her investigation into Jung Kwan. Meanwhile, despite Gio's pleas, Jung Kwan increased the electric current, and Gio's painful screams echoed through the institute for 3 brutal weeks. During this time, Jung-ae and the director finished their evil plan. Gurum visited the prison where Jung Kwan was held and noticed a lawyer had recently sent him money without meeting. The warden said this usually meant the lawyer was avoiding a meeting or was busy. Jewel was revealed as the one who had hired the lawyer to send money to Jung Kwan. Back home, Gurum organized her findings and noticed unusual electricity use at the institute. She learned from the power utility that such high usage indicated a large underground cold storage facility. This day marked the peak of their plan. The director told Lee Sun and Yuna to do their best. He casually mentioned his promise to give G.O.'s right arm to Lee Sun, which unsettled him. After final checks, Jung Kwan told Gio that Lucas cells had been taken from his body. Soon, more children like Gio would be born from surrogate mothers with no chance to escape. Offering a lethal injection, Jung Kwan urged Gio to accept peace. Defiantly, Gio said no one can kill him. Before giving the injection, Jung Kwan swapped the lethal needle with a strength-enhancing drug, his final fatherly act. Meanwhile, Gurum arrived at the institute. She overpowered a researcher and made him lead her to the underground lab. The researcher contacted several black-clad men. Gurum, undaunted, used a collapsible baton and fought them fiercely. In the hallway, Jung-ae met Jung Kwan, congratulating him on the end of their first phase. Expressing regret as if mourning Gio's death, she urged him to continue his efforts. In the lab, after convulsing violently, Gio suddenly revived fully and sat up. Amid sparks and loud noises, the institute fell into chaos. Sensing trouble, Lee Sun told Yuna to protect the director while they evacuated, barely missing Gurum. When Gio woke up, he found himself stronger and overpowered Lee Sun in their fight. With intense background music, Gio relentlessly beat Lee Sun until blood spilled from his mouth. Storming into Jung Kwan's office, Gio found it empty. Angry, he threw a bottle labeled Z0 and shouted Jung Kwan's name. Enduring severe pain, Lee Sun injected himself in the neck and incapacitated Yuna before chasing Gio alone. Leaving the office, Gio encountered a group of black-clad men. Without hesitation, he attacked them, quickly defeating them. Gurum arrived just in time to see this and tried to leave with Gio, but he insisted on finding Jung Kwan first. As they talked, Lee Sun launched a surprise attack. Gurum was thrown into another room, discovering the Institute's grim secret of baby experiments. After securing the babies, Gio unleashed a powerful electric surge, blasting both Gurum and Lee Sun away before an explosion. Despite the chaos, Gio managed to rescue Gurum and the infants, rushing the severely injured Gurum to the hospital. Helpless, he pleaded with the doctors to save her. Following surgery, the doctor recommended she remain in the hospital for observation due to her rare injuries. Watching Gurum sleep on the hospital bed, Gio felt mixed emotions and repeatedly apologized while holding her hand tightly. The Institute's directors were furious about Gio's escape. When the director ordered a halt to all actions, Jung-ae slapped him hard, angry that her billions in investments were wasted. The director struck her back and assured her there was still a chance to recover. By capturing Gio, they could not only recoup their losses but also secure almost anything in the world. He pledged that capturing Gio and Gurum and rebuilding the Institute and its research were top priorities. Speechless, Jung-ae reluctantly allowed the director to proceed, including retrieving the backup frozen embryos from the Institute. Exiting the church, the director asked Jung Kwan about his potential collaborator. Jung Kwan hesitated before suggesting he would align with the most ambitious. Sensing an opportunity, the director volunteered himself, proposing to publicize only one embryo while managing the rest for profit. In exchange, he offered to expose Jung Kwan's creation of a new human race, promising fame and wealth. Jung Kwan, worried, voiced concern that unveiling these beings could spell doom for humanity. The director scoffed, asserting humans were the most ruthless species and not easily wiped out. In the morning, Jin Huan and his team arrived at the institute to find it swarmed by reporters eager for details of the grisly events. Puzzled by the scene, Jin Huan wondered what had happened. The lone survivor accused Gu Room of stealing the institute's secrets and colluding with criminals to launch an attack. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Gio heard this broadcast. Confirming Gu Room's innocence, a vigilant nurse alerted the police. Acting quickly, Gio disregarded protocol, forcefully wheeling Gu Room's stretcher past obstructing doctors and fleeing with her to the underground parking garage. Beneath a bridge, Gio disclosed the unsettling information Jung Quan had revealed. Gu Room remained optimistic that the police could resolve the situation, but Gio hesitated, revealing the harsh reality that her residence was no longer safe. Fabricated within hours, the media had branded them as public enemies after being bribed by powerful adversaries. Understanding the gravity of their predicament, their primary goal was to grasp the full scope of their situation. Later that evening, Wani came home humming a tune, momentarily confused to find Gu Room at his desk, wondering if he had entered the wrong house. His confusion cleared when he saw Gio get up from the sofa to get a drink. Remembering that his car and phone had been taken by force, Wani simmered with anger. Although he had agreed not to see them again, they had met, and Gio had even brought his girlfriend home. Gu Room clarified that she was not Gio's girlfriend but a police officer. Upon hearing this, Wani's demeanor changed quickly, and he welcomed her, acknowledging Gio as his closest friend and inviting her to stay as long as she liked. Meanwhile, Jung Quan stabilized the fading Yi-sun with an injection. After he left, Jung-ae began ingratiating herself with Yi-sun and Yuna, hoping to win their allegiance to keep an eye on the director. She promised them 2 rewards, revealing the truth about a friendly fire incident from their military days and granting their desires. On television, a researcher smeared Gu Room's name, presenting alleged evidence of her illicit gains. Unable to bear it, Gu Room stepped outside for fresh air. Gio followed, wanting to comfort her but unsure how to begin. Gu Room had already seen through their motives, to hide the Institute's dark secrets. She believed there were still traces inside that could lead them to Jung Quan and the truth. While Gio hesitated, recalling Jung Quan's deceitful words, Gu Room was determined to face the harsh reality alone if necessary. Back inside, they overheard Wani calling the police. The situation turned tense. Gio used an electric discharge to disable Wani's phone. While Wani went to fix it, Gio reassured Gu Room that she is not alone. Early in the morning, Gu Room quietly went downstairs and contacted Jin Huan. Briefly explaining the situation, they arranged to meet on the Institute's first floor. Jin Huan then made another call to the chief, who instructed him to eliminate Gu Room if she resisted, fearing she might uncover an old murder case involving him. At the Institute, Gu Room met Jin Huan, who revealed that even if she accessed the secret basement door, it had been stripped bare. He argued that they couldn't defeat such powerful adversaries. Jin Huan urged Gu Room to reveal Gio's whereabouts to save herself. Seeing her tears and determination, Jin Huan realized persuasion was futile and walked away. Soon after, Gu Room faced several black-clad men armed with clubs. Just as they closed in, Gio arrived in time. After subduing Jin Huan, he fought off the attackers. When they tried to leave, Jin Huan blocked their path. Gio shielded Gu Room from a bullet, and she incapacitated Jin Huan with a judo throw, though she couldn't bring herself to harm him further. Neither wanted to prolong the confrontation, so they left together. At dawn, the media reported that Gu Room had resisted arrest and assaulted an officer, revealing her true identity. Disturbed by the news, Gu Room excused herself to the restroom to collect her thoughts. Pursuers closed in quickly, giving her no time to breathe. Gio swiftly intervened, grabbing her and whisking them away. On the rooftop, they saw a large team, including Gu Room's former colleagues, searching for them. Reluctant to harm them, they cleverly used the terrain to evade capture. After settling Li Sun and Yuna, the director asked Jung Quan about the progress of the fertilized eggs. Jung Quan assured him they were ready for implantation after 3 weeks of cultivation. The remaining embryos would be under his care upon successful division. Pleased, the director noted his intention to oversee Gio during this phase. Meanwhile, Gio and Gu Room drove to Run Ranch. Before they left, Wani shared the address, Gio's favorite spot. After driving all night, They arrived and enjoyed 3 months of carefree bliss. However, one evening, news broke of Dr. Jin's apparent suicide, casting a shadow over Gu Room. Sunbathing, she turned somber, lamenting another life lost due to her actions. She told Gio it was time to return. They had avoided reality for too long. That night, a storm hit the ranch, leaving Gu Room pensive as she sat outside. She reflected on her moments with Gio, wishing they could stay there forever. When she returned inside, she found Gio also sitting outside. Leaning her head on his shoulder, she wept openly in the storm. They shared a solemn moment together. Elsewhere, Yuna secretly copied all the Institute's data. By the time the director ordered Yi-sun to capture her, she had already left with the data. In the morning, Gu Room searched under the bed for her pants while Gio cooked breakfast, catching him off guard. They ate in silence, then watched the sunrise together, discussing their future. The storm from the previous night had eased Gu Room's heart momentarily, but as the rain cleared, she felt the pull of reality. Despite the challenges and dangers, they needed to confront it. Seeing her resolve, Gio pleaded for just one more day together before facing what lay ahead. During their stroll, Gio shared what Jung Kwan had told him about Wang Yang. He omitted the part about Wang Yang's intention to sell him. Gio feared the truth might be too harsh for Gu Room. He tried to help her move on from the past, but it proved impossible. In the church, Jung Kwan monitored 3 pregnant women on his computer screen. The embryos had been successfully implanted, and in about 10 months, they would give birth to children stronger than Gio. Regular injections ensured their health. The director envisioned a future where Jung A would present these children as celestial offspring, draining believers' wallets. He demanded the embryos from Jung Kwan to sell them for a hefty sum and retire comfortably. Even if Jung A uncovered the scheme, he could blame Yuna, who had absconded with the data. Opening the refrigerator, they were shocked to find it empty. The embryos were gone. The section chief exploded in anger, interrogating Jung Kwan about the embryos' whereabouts. After calming down, they both suspected Yuna. Now back to her natural black hair, Yuna stood in Jung A's lavish villa, guarded by professionals. She trusted Jung A to honor their deal. All she wanted was Yi-sun's freedom, so she would hand over the data and embryos when the time was right. If Jung A reneged, Yuna was prepared to take drastic measures. That night, Gu Room was awakened by noises outside. She found Gio holding a deceased lamb, which had been frail since birth. She had hoped it would grow stronger, but understood it couldn't escape the harsh realities of natural selection. Seeing Gio so distraught, Gu Room decided to stay a few more days. They cherished several more months of carefree happiness. One day, Gu Room silently handed Gio a pregnancy test, revealing he would soon be a father. Gio embraced her joyously, but Gu Room's expression showed mixed emotions, lacking happiness. Meanwhile, at the institute, Jung Kwan monitored the pregnant women's progress. The section chief confirmed the children's health was stable. Relieved after decades of anticipation for their era of glory, Jung A ensured no complications arose. They discussed the vanished embryos. Jung A subtly reminded the section chief of loyalty, even if it meant being expendable first. After their conversation, Jung A departed in her car, unaware that Yi-sun trailed her to the villa. He spotted Yuna just as the section chief called for an update. Hesitating, he reported no anomalies. Getting up for water, Gu Room was troubled by strong fetal movements. Gio quickly assisted her back to bed, concerned for their child's future. He dreaded the possibility of the child inheriting his abilities and hoped it would take after its mother. Determined to shield their child from a life like his own, Gio paid Wani to create false identities for them. He felt a twinge of dissatisfaction seeing Chinese listed as their nationality on the documents. Wani reassured him, citing China's global influence comparable to the US. Gio explained it was also for their unborn child, due next month. At dawn, Jung A took 3 pregnant women to the church, where the children would be born. Supporters cheered, but the section chief was worried. Meanwhile, Gio and Gu Room packed for the hospital. They took happy wedding photos before Gu Room went into the operating room. The birth was very painful. One woman and her baby did not survive. The energy from the birth knocked Jung Kwan down, but Gu Room successfully delivered her baby. Gio was excited to hold their child. Days later, Jung Kwan and his team were sad about the failed birth. The energy was too much for humans. Jung A asked what they would do next. The section chief, frustrated after 20 years of work, thought about quitting. He then called Yi-sun and told him to catch Gio. Early in the morning, Lee-sun gave documents to Jin Hwan. Jung-ae met Yuna again, asking about the missing embryos. Yuna repeated her terms, Yi-sun's freedom first, or no deal. To show she was serious, Jung-ae brought in attorney Young. She told them a troubling truth about their military past. A fake incident by the section chief led to a comrade's death. This was done to gain loyalty. Attorney Young said it was almost impossible to clear Yi-sun and Yuna's names. However, she offered them new identities and financial security. At the hospital, the couple admired their newborn daughter and discussed names. Won-hee sent a message to Gio about the new identities. Gio planned to register their daughter himself. Won-hee, refusing payment, gave them a bag of nutrients as a gift. As Gu-room went to the nursery, she saw shocking news on TV. The police found 2 bodies in a car accident, her long-missing parents. The National Institute of Science Investigation thought the car was hit by high-voltage electricity. Worried, Gu-room called Yu Cheol. Yu Cheol assured her of her safety but found the case suspicious. Gu-room then asked Yu Cheol to get DNA from Wang Yang's remains for further investigation. After their call, Jan Huan noticed Yu Cheol's strange behavior and secretly ordered a trace on the call. When Gio returned to the hospital, Gu-room and their daughter were gone. He found the tiny shoe he had for his child on the floor. Upset, he asked the doctor to check the surveillance footage, revealing the truth. With Jin Hwan's tip, Lee-sun and Teo found Gu-room easily. Threatening the child, Lee-sun forced Gu-room to go with them. Along the way, he realized the child was Gio and Gu-room's. Back at their home, Gio was furious, and a powerful electric discharge and explosion destroyed their house. Gu-room and her daughter were kidnapped, making Gio very angry. Lee-sun, standing near Gu-room, showed no care for her or her child. He told her that if she resisted, her child would be hurt first. He then called Jin Hwan into the room. Jin Hwan came in looking relaxed, carrying baby clothes, diapers, toys, and talcum powder. Gu-room, full of questions, interrupted him, wanting answers. Jin Hwan, uncaring, saw himself as a hard-working officer chasing criminals, not worried about his bosses. He confirmed that the people found in the car were Mr. and Mrs. Wang Yang, hinting that Gio was the killer, as previously reported. Shocked, Gu-room didn't believe it until DNA evidence proved who the dead people were. Lee-sun pulled out some of her hair for DNA testing. In the car, Jin Hwan told his boss about the situation. The boss, who expected this, had a DNA report ready to give to Gu-room by noon the next day, trying to make her believe Gio was guilty. After getting out of the car, Jin Hwan talked about how mean his colleagues were. Meanwhile, Gio thought Gu-room was targeted because of their child. This gave him new hope and determination to protect them. He planned to watch the police station to catch Jin Hwan and find out about the organization, but Won-hee said this plan wouldn't work. Won-hee offered to help and assured Gio of his support. That night, the chief arrived at the villa to meet Jung-ae and Attorney Young. Attorney Young said she had used strong evidence from the chief's past to even the odds. Jung-ae talked about Wang Yang, who first aimed to create disease-free humans but later shifted to making advanced humans like Gio. Wang Yang stopped the research, took Gio away, and contacted other departments in the National Intelligence Service. Even though official reports said Wang Yang died by accident, Jung-ae had doubts. The night Gio ran from the car, the chief found Wang Yang dying in the woods and accidentally killed him while trying to find out where Gio was. Attorney Young said the oversight department was very reliable, unlike the chief who made many mistakes, including faking Wang Yang's death and framing Yi-sun and Yuna. She told the chief to retire peacefully, with Yi-sun's safe passage as part of the deal. The chief had to sign a confidentiality agreement and resignation letter within 3 days, or the offer would be gone. After he left, Jung-ae told Yuna everything would end in 3 days. Giving up the embryos would free Lee-sun and Yuna, allowing them to start a new life. As she put her daughter to bed, Gu-room thought about Gio's words. If he was the killer, life would be simpler. This thought disturbed her. In the morning, Jin Hwan showed evidence to Gu-room, urging her to tell him where Gio was, warning that any delay could endanger her child's safety. The irony of a female officer having a child with the man accused of killing her parents made Gu-room cry, and it almost affected Jin Hwan too. Shortly after, Attorney Young called. After the call, Jin Hwan advised the chief to retire quietly and cut all ties. The chief, not wanting to lose control, told an unsuspecting Isun to get rid of everyone at the villa and institute. Knowing Yuna was still at the villa, Isun delayed the action until the next day. The chief, unaware, instructed Isun to closely watch Gu Room, as Jin Huan's betrayal started a conflict. Before leaving, the chief ordered Isun to stay loyal no matter what. That evening, Wani followed Gio to a restaurant where they had just finalized their plan. Jin Huan's sudden arrival with his team ruined their numerical advantage. Seeing another opportunity, Wani hesitated, but Gio decided to go alone. After saying goodbye to Wani, he surprised him and went to the restaurant alone. While drinking, Yuchiol talked about Gu Room and their recent contact. Alarmed, Jin Huan tried to silence him. Outside, Gio distracted them, and they rushed out. In a quiet alley, Gio overpowered Jin Huan and his team, then demanded to know where Gu Room was. Meanwhile, Isun secretly met Yuna, revealing the chief's plan to raid the location the next night. He urged her to flee somewhere safe. Yuna asked why Isun couldn't escape with her, even suggesting they face death together if needed. Isun insisted she must live for herself, not for him, and deserved a better life. He stayed downstairs, leaving reluctantly after a final, long look. At dawn, the chief was furious when he found out his subordinates had deserted, with only Isun staying, refusing a life dependent on medication. The chief promised Isun Gio's right hand and all recovery cells, before regaining his composure and going back to his office to meet Gu Room. The chief explained how Wang Yang and Zheng Quan worked for him, turning to Zheng A's organization to fund Zheng Quan's secret experiments that created Gio. Wang Yang treated Gio like a son, but Gio, having animal genes, eventually turned against them. Shifting focus to Gu Room's daughter, he asked if Gu Room wanted her daughter to live a similar life. He suggested that bringing Gio in would clear Gu Room's name and provide a better life for her and her daughter. His persuasive words moved Gu Room. At that moment, Gio called, having forced Jin Huan to hand over his phone after electrocuting him. Stepping outside to take the call, the chief planned to use Gio to his advantage. Returning, he warned Gu Room that any reckless action would result in her child being taken to an unknown place. Now, Gio became his priority. In the dimly lit corridor, Zheng A and Attorney Young made plans after securing the embryos. Attorney Young stressed the importance of keeping their promises, using human antibodies to influence the National Intelligence Agency and gain control over South Korea. With the address in hand, Gio rushed to the villa. The chief explained his plan to Isun, aiming to use Gio's wife and child to ensure Gio's compliance and benefit from it. Worried about Yuna's safety, Isun hurried to the villa. After a fierce battle, Gio defeated all the guards and entered the villa. On the second floor, he confronted Yuna, leading to a struggle where Gio accidentally killed her by hitting her head against a glass table. When Isun arrived, Yuna died in his arms. Isun forced Wani to call Gio, but Wani, showing loyalty, told Gio to leave. Angry, Isun brutally attacked Wani, who begged for Gio's mercy, but Isun, filled with hatred, ignored him. When Gio arrived and saw Wani as his friend, Isun viciously hit Wani with a rod, causing fatal injuries, and then pushed him off the building. Gio rushed up, fought Isun, and knocked him unconscious in the bathroom. He hurried downstairs to help Wani, who, knowing he was dying, told Gio to escape before passing away. Zheng A was deeply frustrated by Yuna's death, as it meant losing access to the data and embryos. Attorney Young speculated that Gio was involved, trying to rescue Gu Room and her daughter. Zheng Quan thought about the situation, confident they could manage if the child was Gio's, making the embryos unnecessary. Attorney Young believed Gio would return, considering he had previously destroyed the lab. Zheng A suggested a new strategy, possibly recruiting Gio and using his child to control him gradually. Attorney Young compared it to gambling, emphasizing their different goals. Then, she wanted to get Gu Room. Meanwhile, the chief, desperate to find Isun, was ambushed by Attorney Young's men, who brutally beat him and Teo. One of them fatally shot Teo in the head, using Gu Room's child's life as leverage to force her compliance as Gio narrowly missed intercepting them. Gu Room was taken to a church where Zheng A and Zheng Quan confronted her. Zheng A tried to describe their happy future, but Gu Room refused to engage. Zheng A then revealed shocking news. Gio was her son, Zheng Quan was his father, and Gu Room was his daughter-in-law, making Gu Room's daughter their granddaughter. Overwhelmed by this revelation, Gurum struggled to accept it. Hearing Gio call Jungkwon dad, Jungkwon smiled, eager to test his granddaughter. Despite Jung-ae's cold reminder of her power to take her daughter whenever needed, Gurum remained defiant. Back at the police station, Jin Hwan yelled at his team for their mistakes. Yu Cheol pulled him aside, suspecting that the chief knew where Gurum was. By tracking phone signals and surveillance data, he found a connection to a religious group linked to Gurum. When he arrived at one of their locations, all he found were bloodstains. Knowing Gurum's ties to the group from nearly 20 years in law enforcement, Yu Cheol kept this information secret. Later, Jin Hwan suggested they meet alone on the rooftop parking lot at night, hiding his lethal intentions. Yu Cheol agreed without hesitation, even jokingly asking if he should bring snacks. That evening, when Jin Hwan got into the car, Yu Cheol was already waiting with his favorite twisted dough snacks. But unexpectedly, Jin Hwan knocking Yu Cheol unconscious and rigged the car exhaust to harm him. Despite their long partnership, he eventually changed his mind and pulled Yu Cheol out of the car. From the shadows, Gio watched and revived Yu Cheol with his electrical power. Inside the lab, Jungkwon began to explain to Gurum his vision for humanity's future. He argued that while humans had advanced in technology, they had not evolved morally or philosophically. Jungkwon wanted to create a new kind of human, using Gio as his masterpiece. He combined genes from the immortal jellyfish for healing, bats for virus immunity, fruit flies for spatial awareness, and electric eels for electricity generation, along with his and Jung-ae's best genetic material. After his explanation, Jungkwon pointed to a glass cabinet with 8 jars, 7 of which held deceased infants, Gio's siblings. Gurum, horrified by this, began to vomit. Jung-ae handed her a towel, subtly hinting at her daughter's uncertain fate. She suggested that Gurum's daughter could either separate like a jellyfish or save others like an electric eel if Gurum joined them. After Jin Hwan's confession, Gio decided to seek justice against those responsible. He believed that the collective will of the people would prevail over powerful enemies. He vowed to expose their wrongdoings and help the victims live openly under their true identities. Convinced by Gio's determination, Jin Hwan revealed the church's address. In the break room, Jung-ae felt pleased with their discussion. She predicted that by tomorrow, Gurum would beg to have her daughter turned back into a regular human. Jungkwon talked about how people often feel uneasy about being different, not realizing it's a gift, and settle for being average. When asked about his future plans, Jungkwon said he wanted to keep creating humans better than Gio, aiming to develop a species that could rule the world. Jung-ae was surprised, saying she only wanted to be an agent of God, not surpass him. Jungkwon replied that by creating Gio, he had already surpassed God. The chief, exhausted, finally found his son and gave him an injection to revive him. When his son woke up, he attacked violently, blaming the chief for Yuna's death. The chief endured the beating but managed to draw his gun before his son could deliver a fatal blow. Once they calmed down, they sat and talked. The chief learned that Jung-ae and attorney Young had kidnapped Gurum. Now alone, the chief had a contact in Japan and shared Gio's information, getting an offer of billions as a retirement fund. He also had drugs from Jungkwon that could enhance his son's strength, making him fearless enough to kill Gio if needed. The chief thought that delivering Gio's body fresh would only get 10% of the money, but it was a fair deal since both parties would get what they needed. After morning prayers, Gio entered the church and demanded to know where Gurum was. Jung-ae tried to greet him but was choked by Gio. She managed to say that she is his mother and Gio released her. It made sense to him. His father had tried to kill him, and now his mother too. Jung-ae insisted that even if he took Gurum away, it wouldn't change anything. She was the only one who could save their family of 3. Meanwhile, Gurum, comforting her daughter, was startled by an electrical surge from the girl's hands. Gio sensed it from the hallway and rushed in. Seeing Gio, Gurum held her daughter tightly and asked him to leave. Clearly shaken by a series of psychological blows, Gurum was uncertain. When Yu Cheol arrived at the police station, his colleague told him that their team leader had resigned the previous night, and the entire family's whereabouts were unknown with their phones unreachable. Remembering the apology Jin Hwan had left for him the night before, Yu Cheol angrily kicked the table and stormed out of the room. By this time, Jin Hwan had already reached the church, briefly assuring his unaware wife before loading his gun and approaching the guarded entrance. Gio believed Gurum was upset about their daughter inheriting his powers. He reassured her that with determination, he could control himself and their daughter, and they could live normal lives. Gu-room argued that while Geo was created, their daughter was not. Inheriting his abilities felt like a curse to her. She had once believed her daughter was human, but now she was unsure. Remembering that Geo had killed his own parents only deepened her regret. It seemed their union was never meant to be. Seeing Gu-room unwilling to listen, Geo decided to take action himself. Ignoring Gu-room's pleas from behind the door, he firmly shut it. In the office, Jung Kwon and Jung A waited patiently. Geo demanded that they clear Gu-room's name and let them go, promising not to bother them again. He said he didn't care about his own fate, which is why he hadn't killed them. Jung A calmly disclosed that she was Geo's mother, clarifying that while she and his father had provided the sperm and egg cells, they did not carry him. Geo felt disgusted. He had wondered about parents who would abandon their child. Now he knew, and he didn't feel guilty about thinking of killing them. Jung A said clearing Gu-room's name was easy, but their daughter's situation was complicated. The world was not ready to accept this child, and her life would be hard, maybe even harder than Geo's. She thought it was better to rule the world than to change it. Geo broke a wine bottle and said he cared more about his own beliefs than what others thought. Jung A agreed, saying they would clear Gu-room's name the next day since government offices were closed. Afterward, Jung Kwon asked Geo to go for a walk and asked him what he would do if he ruled the world. Jung Kwon compared Geo to lions, saying if there were many like Geo, no one would see him or his daughter as monsters. He also said he could create many people each year using Geo's cells. During a prayer meeting, Jin Hwan joined the group of people asking Jung A for help. Jung A said the Book of Redemption was being written, and those in it would go to heaven. A worshipper accused her of superstition and tried to attack her, but Geo stopped him with an electric shock. The crowd called Geo an angel, but he ignored them and left. Gu-room decided to free her daughter, knocked out guards, and faced more at the gate. Geo came, cleaned Gu-room's blood, and held their daughter for the first time, saying the outside world was just a bigger prison. Gu-room followed him back. After their daughter was asleep, Geo asked who could hurt them if there were many children like theirs. Gu-room doubted this and asked if being different was abnormal. Geo said they were not abnormal and wanted to show people they could live together with feelings. He believed their only way to survive was to control his monstrous side. At daybreak, Attorney Young praised Jung A, expecting to control the clones once they were created, citing security risks if managed by civilians. She emphasized the agency's ongoing support. Jung A laughed, claiming she had always controlled the agency and could dismiss Attorney Young's superiors anytime. Attorney Young acknowledged the agency's vital role, prompting Jung A to recognize her limits but hinting at her loyal followers' hidden strength. Changing the subject, she asked about the director. Attorney Young, not knowing where he and Lee Sun were, said in a dry tone that getting older makes people more rebellious. Meanwhile, the director briefed 4 hired assassins. After paying them, he tasked them with eliminating Gu-room, Geo, Jung A, and Attorney Young, ordering them to freeze Geo's body for transport to the central airport. After they left, the director checked on Yi-sun. Injected with a potent drug, Yi-sun endured discomfort, saying he felt nothing and was willing to lose his hand to get revenge on Geo. The director sensed Yi-sun's frustration, but said nothing more. Jung Kwon took Geo to the lab, discussing his belief that Geo's public presence could cause unrest or even war. Geo interrupted, saying he wanted his daughter to go to school and have friends, threatening to eliminate anyone who tried to manipulate him. Reminding Jung Kwon that he spared him to learn their plans, Geo watched a news report from years ago about successful experiments growing premature lambs in artificial wombs, a technology explored in the US, Japan, Europe, and Korea. Jung Kwon suggested this could create many beings like Geo, calling it science's greatest boon. Convinced, Geo agreed to provide his cells for Jung Kwon's experiments. Aware of potential defects, Jung Kwon urged Jung A to prepare more eggs, advocating artificial wombs as the safest method. Before the examination, Jung Kwon explained to Geo the need to eliminate his weaker cells for the experiment's success, reassuring him that the upcoming electric shock would be less painful than before. Geo said nothing could compare to the pain of his past. As he endured the electric current, Gu-room told her daughter about her husband's story, believing that anyone with a human heart could become truly human. During a blood collection, Geo heard his daughter cry and rushed into the room to find her emitting blue currents. He quickly comforted her, but Gu-room sensed something was wrong and swiftly took their daughter away. Outside, Jung-kwan observed the troubling state of the child, reminiscent of Jio's initial amnesia. Initially unsure, Jio knelt by the door, frightened as his daughter's cries grew louder. In the morning, Jung-kwan checked on them, first worried that the child was getting worse, but then saw she was changing like her father. The strong electric shocks from the night before had hurt her brain cells, making her wake up to a strange world each time. A feeling Jio knew well since the nightly sun pushed him down the stairs. Jung-kwan thought the child had released an electric current her body couldn't handle. Now, the only way to save her was with electric shock. Otherwise, she might forget her parents and how to get home. Facing this hard truth, Jio prayed for the first time. He then told Gu-room about Jung-kwan's suggestion. Scared, Gu-room strongly refused to go through with it. Feeling guilty, Jio shocked Gu-room and took their daughter. At the church, after prayers, Isun and 4 henchmen blocked the main entrance. A bodyguard tried to stop them, and a fight started. Jung-ae took the chance to distract Isun by mentioning Yuna. Surprised, he was quickly stabbed in the chest. But Isun, now immune to pain, pulled out the knife and cut Jung-ae's neck. She escaped with the bodyguard's help and, scared, went to Attorney Jung's office for help. When Gu-room woke up, she quickly beat 2 guards at the door and ran into the lab where Jung-kwan was about to start the electric shock treatment on their daughter. She stopped him, giving Jio an angry look saying he is not fit to be a father, or even human, picking up their daughter to leave. Jio felt danger coming. Just as he spoke, Isun entered, ordering his men to kill everyone. Jio fought off 2 attackers to help Gu-room escape and then faced Isun. In the hallway, Gu-room met Jin Huan and, thinking he betrayed her, knocked him down. Without explaining, Jin Huan followed her order to move aside. Outside, a henchman attacked them. While Gu-room fought him, Jin Huan got stabbed in the stomach. Gu-room took him to the hospital, avoiding Jio's eyes as she drove away. In the car, Jin Huan felt sorry for everything. He talked about an old case with Gu-room. The real criminal, not Jung-ae, whom he had been easy on, was to blame. If he had acted then, today's trouble might have been avoided. He told Gu-room to get the director's business card from the compartment, revealing the truth about her parents' killer. It wasn't Jio, but the director. The director had framed Jio. Just as Gu-room was about to ask more, Jin Huan died. She stopped the car, saw Jio coming, grabbed her daughter, and ran away, closing the gate behind her, leaving Jio confused on the other side. Gu-room told Jio she knew he wasn't the killer and felt relieved, but couldn't forgive him for the experiment on their daughter. Jio said he had no choice and asked if her pain was worse than their daughter's possible suffering. Was living in fear and hiding really better? They needed to think about their daughter's future, not just their own. Gu-room gave him a final look, convinced they had made him a monster. Leaving would save him from living like that. She apologized, thanked him for their past love, and left without looking back. Jio cried and banged on the door. Bloodied, Isun caught up, saying only one of them could survive to end their chase. Tired and with nothing left, he asked Jio to kill him. Instead of using the knife Isun offered, Jio used an electric shock, and Isun soon died. Not hearing from Isun, the director sensed trouble and got a gun to handle things himself. When Attorney Jung arrived at the office, Jung-ae was very angry. She demanded Attorney Jung bring the director to her so she could get her revenge. Jio came in, ignored Jung-ae, and asked Attorney Jung to help find Gu-room. In return, he promised to give whatever was needed. Jung-ae, furious, asked if Gu-room was the only woman in the world. Jio looked at her and said Gu-room was the only one who stood by him when the world turned against him. Jung-ae threatened to frame Gu-room for murder and send their daughter to a foreign lab. Unable to take it, Jio strangled her, saying if the son was a monster, then the mother didn't deserve to be human. After a strong electric shock, Jung-ae died. Later, Attorney Jung suggested closing the church and getting a bigger lab, knowing that making people like Jio needed a lot of space. Jung-ae's followers would be moved until a new leader was found. Inside the church, Jung-kwan comforted Jio, reminding him he wasn't just anyone's child but the result of decades of progress. He urged Jio not to blame himself, to let go of the past, and to move forward. If Jio truly wanted the best for Gu-room and their daughter, he should stay and help create a better future for humanity. At the marketplace, Gu-room contacted Yuchil. When he arrived, he found only a baby, the director's business card, and a note from Gu-room asking him to care for her daughter for a few days while she handled something urgent. As Yuchil left, Gu-room felt reassured and walked away. She then carried out a fishing operation, got a new phone and money from a former convict, and called Yuchil again. Her child was now safe with Yuchil's mother. Gu-room, suspicious of betrayal, asked Yuchil to track the director's phone signal. Yuchil insisted on knowing all the details first, or he wouldn't help. After hanging up, he tried calling the director's number, but it was disconnected. He turned to his computer to investigate further. Meanwhile, the director was meeting with Attorney Young. Attorney Young mentioned the leadership's anger at the director for not resigning and warned that even the king of the jungle could be dethroned. The director dismissed this, saying he always had a backup plan and advised Attorney Young not to take things too seriously. As Attorney Young left, he laughed and told someone on the phone to keep an eye on the director. That night, Yuchil told Gu-room that the phone number was disconnected and the identity was fake, making it impossible to get a search warrant. Gu-room suggested using the director's business card found at a crime scene as evidence. Yuchil was impressed but warned her to be careful. The next morning, after a quick breakfast, Gu-room and Yuchil split their tasks. Gu-room soon found a number the director called often. In the new lab, Jung Kwan updated Geo on his progress, saying Geo's cells would soon grow rapidly. He aimed to create 10,000 individuals, like one leader ruling over 10,000 followers. Jung Kwan then showed Geo a digital family portrait with Gu-room, highlighting the importance of family unity. Geo looked at the photo, his expression growing serious. Following the number, Gu-room tracked it to a garage and saw the director nearby. She set off a fire alarm for distraction, found his hideout, and captured him after a tough fight. Surveillance staff saw this and quickly informed Attorney Young. The director refused to give in, mocking Gu-room as someone who couldn't touch him. He admitted to killing Wang Yang because Wang supported Geo's right to live as a human, which he couldn't accept. He warned Gu-room that even if he confessed, the truth would be buried. Unfazed, Gu-room assured him she was determined to see this through and told Geo to come and get someone. Just after she hung up, Attorney Young's men burst in to catch her. In the struggle, the director tried to escape but was stopped by Gu-room in the elevator. At the meeting place, Gu-room gave Yuchil the recording. It couldn't be used as direct evidence, but it was enough to start an investigation. Her plan was to hide with her daughter and wait to be cleared. Before she could leave, Attorney Young's men showed up. Yuchil bravely fought them to give Gu-room and her child time to get away. Gu-room and her daughter hid in an unfinished building, where Gu-room lost a shoe in the rush. Just as Yuchil defeated their pursuers, he was hit by a car driven by a second group of chasers, leaving his fate unclear. The director freed himself, grabbed a sniper rifle from a car trunk, and ran to the unfinished building. On the rooftop, realizing they couldn't escape, Gu-room thought about her time with Geo and their daughter's uncertain future, making a hard decision. She told her sleeping daughter to hide well. With determination, she let go, and as her daughter fell toward a hole in the floor, she was surrounded by a strong electric field, landing safely. Just then, Geo arrived by car, saw Gu-room struggling on the rooftop, and rushed to help, desperate to know where their daughter was. Gu-room lied, saying she had sent her far away. Geo suggested they could now create their own world. Unable to change the world, he wanted to give hope for a better future. Despite Gu-room's efforts to convince him further, she saw the director aiming with an infrared scope. Without hesitation, she shielded Geo from a deadly shot. As she died, she hoped Geo would become his old self again, then closed her eyes. Geo tried to revive Gu-room with his electrical power, but she stayed unconscious. Full of anger, he told the director that humans were beyond saving before pushing him off the building to his death on the rebar below. Geo then carried Gu-room's lifeless body away. At dawn, a construction crew heard a baby crying, catching the attention of one worker. Following the sound, he found the child, whom he and his wife adopted. They celebrated their new family with a photo at a studio. Today marked the opening of the cloning facility. In the lab, rows of Geo's clones emitted bright blue electricity. So the moral of the story is, if you're ever stuck between being a human or a monster, just remember to keep your family close and your electric shocks closer, because sometimes the best way to bond is by short-circuiting your enemies together.